Hi, Kristen. Thank you so much for joining us today to have this conversation. Can you start by introducing yourself for our watchers?
My name is Kristin Barnes. I live in Shoreline, Washington, and I'm a naturopathic physician and an acupuncturist, and I'm also a human being with a body that sometimes needs work.
Yeah. You also served in the military for a short period, yeah? Or a long
I
period.
I did. I went to the Naval Academy from 1988 to 1992. Then I was commissioned as a Naval Aviator. I flew F-14s off of aircraft carriers until they were retired in 2006. Then I completed my tour of, or my career with admin jobs and eventually ended up in the physical education department at the Naval Academy, where I was working with athletes and specifically cyclists. And interesting also working with women who identified as survivors of sexual assaults. And we'll probably get into that later in the conversation a little bit here.
Yeah. And you also have been a competitive cyclist, yeah?
Competitive cyclist. I've been racing since I was 19. I've been doing marathons since I was 20, 21, and then I did Ironman. I went to world championships 4 times in Kona, so I've got that experience. And I live to tell the tale. I'm still walking after after all that activity, but it's one of the reasons I needed so much work is doing that much physical activity on top of the demanding jobs of a physical job like flying an airplane. It created a little bit of a hole for me.
Yeah. Will you talk a little bit about what you were experiencing before your life intersected with Counterstrain?
Yeah, so I retired from the Navy and Ironman actually in 2015. My last competitive event was actually Race Across America, which is as it just like it sounds, a cross-country bicycle race that goes on 24/7, starts in Oceanside, California, ends in Annapolis, Maryland. And I did it with a team of 8, but it was 6 days, 12 hours, and 58 minutes of nonstop cycling, essentially. And it left me broken. Like I have never been the same since that event. And that's after even doing 7 Ironman and, a bunch of marathons and half marathons and half Ironman. That it was the Race Across America that really put the nail in the coffin of my competitive career. Well, I didn't just stop there. I retired from the Navy and retired from athletic competition and decided to go to med school. And so I ended up sitting in an auditorium for the next 5 years. And so I went through all this activity, and if I had somehow continued to do activity and get treatment the way I had before I retired, I was getting regular acupuncture, regular body work, a lot of self-care in that. If I had maintained that, I might have been okay. But then I sat down for 5 years. And then
Yeah.
COVID happened and we were even more sedentary. And by the time I graduated in 2021, I didn't think I was ever going to be the same. And I probably won't be the same. If I can improve my quality of life, which I have greatly, I'm going to be happy with that. But then add on to that I've gotten into 2 very serious bike accidents. One was in 2018, well, 3 total, but here in Washington, one was in 2018. And then one was recently July of 2022 that put me in the ER. So I'm 52 years old. I've had 3 really bad bike accidents. I have all the trauma of landing and taking off from an aircraft carrier for 15 years. I have all the athletic competition that I did, and I did 5 years of medical school, and now I can barely stand up straight, and I am in pain pretty much all the time. So that's where I was about a year ago.
Okay. And so how did you learn about Counterstrain? How did it enter your life?
Counterstrain was part of a video I watched for continuing education to maintain my license in the state of Washington. I saw Dr. Christie put on a presentation about this magical thing called Counterstrain, looked up a little bit more about it, and then I wrote her a note and said, "Hi, I'm the student. I'm interested in this, this magic that you're doing. Can I come watch?" And so I spent the day with her in her clinic, and Dr. Harmon as well. And I was blown away by the stories that patients were telling me, the stories that the practitioners were telling me about how people come in, and it's not instantaneous. You know, I'm being a little flippant, I suppose, in calling it magic. It feels like magic sometimes, but patients coming in and saying, this stuff changed my life. You know, and we hear that about a lot of things, but when you actually see it, and I experienced it as a patient, like after I left the office that day, I had already scheduled like 3 appointments with Dr. Harmon, saying, I'm not leaving without making sure that I can come back and experience this as a patient. And then after I had been working with Rachel for a while, I'm like, I need to learn this. Like my life is not going to be complete if I don't learn how to do this and mix it with my acupuncture and my naturopathic skills. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that for now. We'll get there.
Yeah. Okay. And so then oh wait, I wanted to ask, before you got the treatment, did you have any reservations or concerns or doubts about the technique?
Well, yeah, you do, because you're like, if this is so freaking, miraculous, why isn't every practitioner, every body worker in America or across the globe doing it? And I think I have answers to that question at this point, but it makes you wonder, if it's so miraculous, why isn't everybody doing it? Why isn't insurance covering it? You know, all the things that go with the medical model in the US. Like, so I had serious reservations. And it, but I think those were addressed pretty darn quickly. And if I didn't have my answers then, I would have had them. So thinking to back up, like it was a year and a half ago, I started working with Dr. Harmon. And July of 2022 was my bike accident. If I hadn't had the answers by the time I got to my bike accident, once I received the treatments for the bike accident, it totally cemented it in my mind that this is something that I have to do, because Dr. Christie didn't just work on my ribs. I had 6 broken ribs. I had a broken vertebrae in my neck. I had, in the hospital, I had internal bleeding. So I had damage to my pleura, my lungs. I had a collapsed lung. I had damage to my arterial systems, my venous systems, all the systems that are in Counterstrain. I've had work on those. But the thing that was most disconcerting about that bike accident was the anxiety it left me with, because I've been through a lot of things, and I get up in the morning and I'm still going to go, even if I have pain. This was one of those accidents that I got up and I'm like, I'm not going anywhere, because I am so anxious that I can't even get behind the wheel of a car to drive to work without getting an upset stomach. And I think that's where the most important part of the treatment came, is when she helped me with the anxiety.
And I might, tell me if I'm making a leap here, but is it that you were helped with the anxiety because of the work that was done on your brain and nervous system? Or
well, yes. So although I don't know if I know yet, if that makes sense. I am still, as a practitioner, I started with Counterstrain, and I've had enough musculoskeletal type treatments. I know what those feel like, but I don't know if we know what it feels necessarily like when she works on the ventricles of the brain, or the venous drainage, or the fascia around the cerebellum. I think I do. But one of the challenges in those is that I think they take a little bit longer to unwind. Like if I work on your neck, you walk out and you're like, oh yeah, it feels better. When you're doing Counterstrain for mood disorders, I think it takes a while for the brain to rewire, the fascia inside the brain to rewire, the proprioception around the eyes and the vestibular system, getting into some of the deep systems of the brain that she worked on. I think it takes time for those to rewire. But I do know that after a couple sessions of Counterstrain, I was much less anxious. And that was important, because I needed to be able to drive to work without making myself sick, right?
Yeah.
And there was nothing else I was doing at the time that could account for that change. Like I wasn't going through talk therapy. I wasn't doing psychedelics. I was doing some acupuncture, but not enough that I thought that acupuncture on its own was going to be the thing that helped. Although that might be an important thing to bring to the conversation, is how things work together: acupuncture and counterstrain, talk therapy and counterstrain, psychedelics and counterstrain. But I definitely think that the work that she did on the brain in terms of draining the venous and lymphatic system, so there's less congestion, and increasing the circulation and oxygen supply to the parts of the brain that need it, the frontal cortex, all the higher decision-making parts, contributed to me being able to function as a human being with much less intensity and much less anxiety.
Yeah. I actually want to circle back really quick, because this thought of like, why don't more people know about this is a question we get all the time. And you said that you think, excuse me, you think you have some answers. I'd be curious to hear what are some of your hypotheses around that?
Well, I'm kind of a conspiracy theorist, so I think there are a lot of people that, and it's not like it's being kept down artificially. I don't, you know what I'm saying? I think part of it is it's hard for people to believe that there is a modality out there that is as simple as counterstrain that can be as powerful as it is. They're like, nope, don't believe it, not going to invest the time. Number two, as a practitioner, it takes a lot to learn this. It's, you know, there are up to 12 systems now, and there's more on the way. It's, and the system of diagnostics all on its own, really, I mean, it should be a master's level program. Like, the diagnostics is just as complicated to me as learning the diagnostics of Chinese medicine and all the meridians. So it's hard. It's not like the average person, especially somebody who just came out of naturopathic school or just came out of PT school, is going to necessarily have the wherewithal or want to invest the additional time and energy it takes to learn something that can be, is complex. It's not complicated, it's complex, right? And it doesn't fit our medical model. Like, our medical model is, it's broken and we throw a medication at it, or we give it an MRI and then we say there's nothing we can do. And so it doesn't fit in our system. So a lot of people who are doing it for cash. And I think doing it under the insurance model takes creative charting, which some people aren't comfortable doing. And I get that. Like, nobody, and it's not like you're falsifying a chart note. You're not, you're not doing what you need to do in the best interest of the patient so that you can do whatever's in the best interest of insurance and making sure that the visit gets paid. And that's not the way it should be. But our medical model in America doesn't allow for that.
Yeah. Cool. Those are great answers. What was I'd love to hear about your experience with treatment. Like you said, you were witnessing patients going through this journey, and then you said, I gotta get on the table. So do you have a recollection of those first experience? Like, how would you describe it to somebody who's never done it before?
The best way I have to describe it is this. Everybody's familiar with the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz. And when we first meet the Tin Man, he's all rusted and he does, you know, and he doesn't have a heart, but we can't, Counterstrain, I don't know if we can fix that, but he's rusty, right?
Yeah.
And he goes into Oz and gets oiled and shined, and he walks out and he's a new Tin Man. It's, and I liken it to that, where I go into a Counterstrain session, I have aches and pains, maybe not feeling well. I don't know what it is. Sometimes half the challenge is just identifying being in your body and being able to use words to describe what your body is experiencing, which I've learned along the way as part of doing Counterstrain. Anyway, so going in feeling tense or tight or painful or constricted, and then walking out and feeling like the Tin Man did when he was finally oiled and could move without constriction.
Great. That's an awesome metaphor. Love it. So, and I think that segues really well into, we got a really clear snapshot of the symptoms and the ailments, the mobility, the pain, the mental experience that you were having before you started getting treatment. And then you've been getting treatment for several months, a year and a half or so.
Yep.
How, like, what's of those symptoms that you were experiencing before treatment, what what's enduring, what's still there, what's improved? Like, kind of walk us through the evolution.
I think my ability to work without pain is the most important thing that I've gotten from Counterstrain, because I do a lot of, even though it's just acupuncture or doing just Counterstrain, these activities are physically demanding in that they require endurance, and they require me to move and use my body in the context of a patient visit. And that can be a lot if I'm in pain, like my low back hurts or my hip hurts, and I have to change how I'm doing something ergonomically with a patient because I'm in pain. And I don't, a lot of people maybe not into energetic medicine, but as I am into energetic medicine, and I think the energy that I bring into the room impacts how the patient feels. And so it's really important for me to bring in energy that is not bogged down by my own stuff. So it has impacted me there. What's lingering? I still have some lingering right hip pain and low back pain. Is it because Counterstrain's a failure? No, I guess in that case, like acupuncture is a failure and massage is a failure. Those things aren't failures. I have a really high quality of life. I'm able to work as a 52-year-old person. I'm not slowing down at all. I have energy on the weekends to go hike the Olympics. Like every weekend I'm out hiking, or I haven't been doing a lot of biking just because of the weather, but getting out and moving in a way that people still look like, how old are you again? Yeah. So in that context, I'm doing really well. And I bounced back from that bike accident and being in the ER, what could be considered almost instantaneously. Like my ribs took a little while to heal, but once I went back and I had to undergo shoulder surgery, so I got Counterstrain to help me prepare and heal from shoulder surgery. Like I was in and out of those things very, very quickly and with minimal side effects as a result of surgery. So I didn't have swelling. I didn't have lingering pain. I didn't have, I took almost no time off at work, although some people would say psychologically, maybe I should have anyway. But the point was that physically, I felt really good despite a really tragic bike accident that could have killed me, essentially. So does the fact that I have lingering hip pain? Well, I've had hip pain for decades, and I've had low back pain since I was 8 years old. And maybe that's not Counterstrain's job to fix. Maybe that's something just about my journey on planet Earth. But as far as the benefit and use of Counterstrain, I, like Dr. Christie says, if I had to leave behind everything but one thing, Counterstrain would be the one thing I would want to keep, just because of its effect, its widespread systemic effect on the body, the nervous system, the arteries, the veins, the muscles, the ligaments, the bones, everything. You can affect that with Counterstrain.
What would you say to like an athlete, or let's say like a veteran or somebody like active duty military who's watching this, and this is kind of their first exposure to Counterstrain and they're on the fence, but they're trying to discern like if this is something they want to add into their care plan?
I'd say that you can't say you've tried everything until you've tried Counterstrain, because so many people are like, I've tried everything. I'm like, no, you haven't, because you haven't tried this one thing. And I would say one of the neat things that Counterstrain has done for me is given me hope, because I was convinced that I'd never get back on my bicycle, or I'd never be able to do the long distance hikes that I'm doing without it. So, and hope is a powerful motivator. When you talk about people that are dealing with such trauma and post-traumatic stress, and not only the emotional stress, but a lot of the military members and first responders that deal with physical injuries, broken backs, broken necks, jumping out of airplanes, getting hit by IEDs from vehicles that are exploding. These things do incredible damage to your body, and not just your and not just your bones and your muscles, but like your vestibular system, your eyes, your brain, your heart, your lungs, everything is affected by these things. And Counterstrain is one of the only modalities that can address all of that. Acupuncture comes close. But the way I've been learning Counterstrain, the way it's been taught to me, I feel like Counterstrain would, as a single standalone modality, would be more effective than acupuncture. Doing them together would be really ideal.
Good thing we're not limited. I mean,
right?
Bridgeback only does Counterstrain, but as like the person watching this, they can explore as many
but I'd
supplementary things.
Just having the hope that there might be something else out there. I think it's very similar, and I don't know if you're going to end up cutting this part out of the video, but it's very similar to what psychedelics are offering in terms of treatment of PTSD. So you haven't tried everything until you've tried Counterstrain. You haven't tried everything until you've tried psychedelics and the therapy that's associated with that. And there's hope that there's something else out there. So, don't give up yet. Give us a chance. And if we're not the right fit for you, there's somebody out there that can help. We just gotta find the right person, the right practitioner for you, and make it accessible. So, the right practitioner isn't the one in Frederick. It's going to be the one that's locally that you can afford, and getting enough people to do to get trained up in it and become practitioners in it, to get enough nonprofits that are available to give treatments at really affordable costs. These things are going to take time, but we're getting there, and hang in there because it's worth it.
Yeah. Awesome. Anything else you want to share with somebody who might be watching this before we close down?
What have you got to lose? I see a lot of veterans who are pretty. I mean, I've heard some stories that would just break your heart, and they want to give up. Suicide has become the option of choice, it seems, which I understand when somebody is in a lot of pain. However, there are other options, and I would encourage vets who are considering that to at least give us a shot before because once you do the final thing, you can't come back, right? So give us a chance. Look up a practitioner, even if that practitioner isn't a veteran, they still are going to be able to help. I think that's one of the things that veterans do that maybe we shoot ourselves in the foot a little bit, proverbially, is we only like to work with other vets because they're the ones who understand, and they might. But in the end, if it comes between keeping you alive and happy on planet Earth and working with a non-veteran practitioner, that would be the preferred option.
Yeah. I vote for that.
I do too.
I'm not a veteran, but I vote for that.
Yeah, there's lots of really good people who haven't held a gun and been shot at, but still have trauma and understand what it's like to live in a body with trauma. Give those people a chance.